Let's get right into it. Number 10. The cosmic panic button. Imagine you're floating in the silent void of space, surrounded by infinite blackness, and your brain suddenly decides to have a meltdown. No alarms, no danger, just you, your thoughts, and the realization that Earth is a dot and you're not going back anytime soon. This is where space madness begins, not as an alien virus or intergalactic rage fit, but as a very human response to extreme isolation and sensory deprivation. Your brain was designed to live in gravity, noise, and social contact. In space, it's basically running Windows 95 on Mars. Astronauts report bizarre experiences. Time distortion, paranoia, and intrusive thoughts like asterisk, what if I just open the hatch? Asterisk NASA psychologists call it confined environment syndrome, which sounds like something you'd get from living in a windowless office, but it's way darker. When you're orbiting the Earth in a metal tube the size of a studio apartment, every creak, every glitch, every floating breadcrumb becomes a psychological landmine. The brain starts to crave control. It invents danger to justify the anxiety. You can't fight or flee, so you spiral instead. And because astronauts are trained to not freak out, they often don't tell anyone. They internalize the panic until it manifests in weird ways. Staring blankly for hours, forgetting basic procedures, or arguing about imaginary noises. Basically, your brain presses the cosmic panic button, and there's no one around to turn it off. Just you, floating 250 miles above the planet, trying not to lose it. Number 9. The oxygen hallucination. You'd think running out of oxygen would be your biggest concern in space. But ironically, having too much can also mess you up. See, space missions rely on pressurized cabins filled with oxygen-rich air. But oxygen in high doses becomes neurotoxic, like sniffing sanitizer and Red Bull at the same time. The brain starts firing off false signals, creating sensations and visions that don't exist. Some astronauts have reported hearing phantom voices through the comms, or seeing flashes of light when their eyes are closed. Those flashes? They're actually cosmic rays, high-energy particles slamming into your optic nerves like invisible bullets. You can't dodge them, and your brain interprets them as light. So picture this. You're floating through the dark, and suddenly your vision explodes in rainbow sparks. Your ears pick up whispers that aren't there, and your body feels both weightless and crushingly heavy at the same time. That's not space. That's your nervous system getting electrocuted by physics. It's like your brain's trying to render reality on ultra settings but forgot to install the graphics card. You start questioning what's real, and that's when the paranoia sets in. Because if you can't trust your senses, how do you know you're not losing your mind? In space, you can't just breathe. Breathing is the problem. Number 8. The isolation experiment. NASA has spent decades trying to simulate what happens to humans when they're trapped together for long stretches. Like lab rats with PhDs. The results? Not great. In one famous experiment, 6 people were locked in a mock spacecraft for over a year to test long-duration isolation. Within months, tempers exploded. One crew member punched another during a disagreement about, wait for it, music selection. 2 others started an affair. One person refused to speak for days. Turns out, the real enemy of deep space isn't aliens, it's small talk. Humans need privacy, sunlight, and variety, and space gives you none of that. You eat the same vacuum-packed food, see the same faces, and live in the same recycled air every single day. Over time, the brain starts to glitch. Sleep cycles collapse, emotions flatten, and people begin to detach. Not just from others, but from reality itself. It's like your sense of self starts dissolving into the airlock. That's why NASA psychologists now track interpersonal drift. When crewmates subtly start ignoring each other, forming silent alliances, or becoming emotionally robotic. Imagine living in a floating office where everyone's trapped in the world's worst group project. Forever. Basically, space doesn't just isolate you. It erases you one personality glitch at a time. Number 7. The floating corpse problem. Alright, here's something they don't put in the recruitment brochures. What happens if someone dies in space? Because yeah, space doesn't stop for mental breakdowns. If a crew member dies, you can't exactly bury them. You can't even throw them out. That'd create a human-shaped piece of space debris orbiting Earth at 17,000 miles per hour. So the options are grim. NASA has considered sealing the body in a special bag, freezing it outside the ship, or worst case, storing it in the freezer next to the ice cream. And you, the surviving crew, still have to float around pretending everything's fine while your friends vacuum-sealed corpse bobs outside like a haunted space balloon. Now imagine how that messes with your mind. You're already on edge, sleep-deprived, hallucinating light flashes, and now you've got a literal reminder of mortality orbiting beside you. This isn't sci-fi. Astronauts have trained for these scenarios, and psychologists admit it could push even the most stable person toward breakdown. Because space doesn't give you closure, it gives you ghosts in zero gravity. Basically, space madness isn't just loneliness. It's grief that never lands. Number 6. The sleep deprivation spiral. You know that fuzzy, half-awake feeling when you've pulled an all-nighter? Now stretch that out for 6 months and make it happen in orbit. Astronauts on the International Space Station experience 16 sunrises and sunsets per day. Their circadian rhythms don't stand a chance. One moment it's bright as noon, the next it's pitch black, and your brain's like, what time zone are we in again? Mars? Sleep deprivation in space is brutal. Without natural light cues or gravity, your body forgets when it's supposed to shut down. Melatonin production tanks, REM cycles get shredded, and astronauts start reporting space insomnia, a polite NASA term for losing your mind from lack of sleep. And when you don't sleep, your perception fractures. Tasks feel harder, emotions get weird, and you start making mistakes. In space, a small mistake can mean a dead crewmate or a lost spacecraft. That's why some astronauts describe dreaming while awake, hallucinating checklists, phantom beeps, or even people who aren't there. It's not ghosts. It's the brain inventing noise to stay sane. Like when you swear you hear your phone buzzing, but it's not. Multiply that by a few hundred miles of isolation and a dose of cosmic radiation, and congratulations, your neurons are just scattering themselves into chaos. Basically, your brain in space is like a laptop running 37 tabs of existential dread, and it's starting to overheat. Number 5. The Mirror Reflex. Humans need mirrors, not just to check for toothpaste stains but to confirm we exist. In space, where your reflection is limited to a scratched metal panel or a floating camera lens, something weird happens. People start forgetting what they look like. Astronauts describe a subtle detachment, like their body isn't theirs anymore. They move, but it doesn't feel connected. Their sense of ownership, the psychological link between brain and body, starts glitching. It's called proprioceptive drift, and it's the same phenomenon studied in body illusion experiments on Earth. One astronaut said it felt like he was piloting a meat puppet from somewhere behind his own skull. Creepy, right? It's your brain losing its calibration because gravity isn't there to anchor your movements. And then there's the emotional layer. When you finally do see your face in a reflection after weeks, it can feel alien. Wrinkles look sharper. Eyes look hollow. The floating hair doesn't help either. Everyone looks like they've been electrocuted by anxiety. It's the cosmic version of catching your reflection at 3 a.m. and thinking, who is that? But up there, that thought doesn't fade, it festers. Because in space, the only mirror big enough to see yourself in is the void. Basically, space turns your body into an uncanny avatar, and your mind can't always tell who's driving. Number 4. The Paranoia Loop. Let's say you've been in space for months. You haven't had a private moment since launch. The same few people surround you 24/7, breathing the same recycled air, eating rehydrated chili, and pretending they're fine. Eventually, someone snaps. It starts small. A crewmate talks too loudly or moves your pen. Then your brain, desperate for stimulation, goes full conspiracy mode. Suddenly, they're plotting something. Maybe they're judging you. Maybe they're hiding something from mission control. Maybe they're sabotaging your work. In extreme isolation, paranoia isn't a flaw, it's a survival mechanism. Your brain evolved to scan for social threats in tribes of 150 people. Now it's stuck in a space tin can with 5. Every sigh or silence becomes a potential betrayal. Psychologists call it social delusion contagion, where one person's suspicion infects the group like a cold. Before long, everyone's tiptoeing, monitoring each other, whispering in private. There's even a documented case during a Russian isolation experiment where one crew member barricaded himself in a room after believing his teammates were conspiring against him. Because here's the cosmic joke. In space, your life actually does depend on everyone else behaving perfectly. The paranoia isn't entirely wrong. It's just dialed up to 11. Basically, the real alien invasion isn't from out there. It's from your own suspicious little monkey brain losing trust in its tribe. Number 3. The sensory starvation. On Earth, your brain is constantly bombarded. Smells, sounds, colors, textures. In space, you get gray walls, air filters, machine hums, and the faint scent of burnt metal. That's it. Your brain, starved for novelty, starts making up sensations. You might hear a song that isn't playing. Smell Earth's rain through the vents. Even feel gravity pulling on your feet that aren't touching anything. This is called sensory deprivation hallucination, and it's what happens when your nervous system gets bored. The mind craves stimulation so badly that it manufactures fake input just to stay busy. Astronauts have reported seeing floating orbs, glowing shapes, or human figures moving at the edge of their vision. It's the same trick your brain plays when you stare at a blank wall too long and start to see patterns. In a way, your brain becomes its own haunted house, filling the silence with ghosts it made itself. It's a biological coping mechanism, and a terrifying one. Basically, when your mind's playground runs out of toys, it starts building monsters out of boredom. Number 2. The infinite fall illusion. Here's a fun fact. Astronauts are technically falling around Earth at all times. Orbit isn't floating. It's continuous freefall. Your body just never hits the ground because Earth keeps curving away. Cute, right? Until your brain realizes it's been falling for 6 months straight. See, your vestibular system, the part of your inner ear that tells you which way is up, completely short-circuits in zero gravity. It's like trying to play pinball without the flippers. Astronauts often describe the first few weeks as feeling like they're perpetually tumbling, even while motionless. Their eyes say they're still, but their inner ear screams, "We're falling, we're falling." Some vomit, some panic, some get motion hallucinations so intense they lose sense of forward. Imagine trying to fix a satellite while your brain's whispering, "You're upside down," or maybe inside out. Even after the body adapts, something strange lingers. The illusion of drifting. Veterans say that after returning to Earth, they'll wake up in bed and feel like they're still floating, as if gravity itself feels wrong now. Their brains have rewritten the baseline of normal. So yeah, space doesn't just confuse your sense of balance, it hijacks it. You're not supposed to fall forever, but up there you do. Basically, space makes your brain the world's most anxious skydiver, forever waiting to hit the ground that never comes. Number 1. The Existential Collapse. And finally, the crown jewel of space madness. The moment when your brain realizes how small you are and breaks a little. It's called the overview effect. Many astronauts describe it as awe. Others describe it as a total identity crisis. When you see Earth from space, a glowing marble wrapped in a paper-thin atmosphere, you suddenly understand how fragile and temporary everything is. All your problems, your history, your species, they shrink into cosmic background noise. Some people find that beautiful. Others spiral into philosophical despair. Because once you've seen the whole planet at once, how do you go back to caring about emails, rent, or taxes? It's like watching your life through a microscope and realizing you're just a bacteria with Spotify. One astronaut said he couldn't stop crying after his first orbit. Not from sadness, but from existential overload. The human brain wasn't built to process infinity. We evolved to spot predators, not contemplate the void. So when you stare into that endless darkness, something ancient in your psyche whispers, "This isn't our home." It's no wonder space agencies screen for people who can handle that level of cosmic vertigo. Not everyone can stare at the universe and stay sane. Basically, space madness isn't a disease. It's the brain finally realizing what the universe already knew. You're a temporary consciousness, clinging to a rock, floating in forever. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.